There are some lies that do not sound like lies at all. They sound caring, reasonable, patient. That was what made them dangerous. For nearly 8 years, Emma Reynolds believed her husband loved her because he always sounded calm while she sounded emotional. Whenever they argued, Ryan never yelled. He never slammed doors or raised his voice. Instead, he would look at her with quiet disappointment and say things like, "You're exhausting yourself again." Or, "You always turn small problems into drama." At first Emma thought he was trying to help her. She worked long hours as a graphic designer in Boston, often stressed and emotionally drained. So when Ryan told her she was overthinking things, she believed him. Slowly, without realizing it, she stopped trusting her own reactions. Every time something felt wrong, she convinced herself she was simply being too sensitive. That became the pattern of their marriage. Ryan controlled conversations not through anger, but through calmness. And over time Emma began confusing calmness with honesty. One winter evening Emma returned home earlier than expected because a client meeting had been cancelled. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of Ryan talking softly in the bedroom. At first she smiled, assuming he was on a work call. But then she heard him laugh in a way she hadn't heard in months. Warm, intimate, alive. Emma froze in the hallway as his voice lowered almost into a whisper. "I miss you too," he said softly. A strange heaviness settled into her chest. She waited a few seconds before walking toward the bedroom. And suddenly the conversation stopped. Ryan opened the door immediately. Phone already lowered, expression perfectly relaxed. "You're home early," he said casually. Emma stared at him. "Who were you talking to?" Ryan looked confused for half a second before giving a small laugh. "Seriously?" Emma felt herself shrinking already. "I just asked a question." Ryan sighed tiredly and walked past her into the kitchen. It was a work call. "You always assume something dramatic." There it was again. Dramatic. Somehow within seconds, the tension shifted away from his secretive behavior and onto Emma's reaction. By the end of the conversation, she was apologizing for being suspicious while Ryan comforted her like she was the unstable one.
That night Emma couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment in her head. The softness in Ryan's voice. The sudden silence when he heard her enter the apartment. Deep down her instinct screamed that something was wrong. But another voice inside her repeated Ryan's words louder. "You always overthink. You always assume the worst." Around 2 a.m. Emma quietly got out of bed and walked into the living room where Ryan's laptop sat open on the table. She stared at it for several seconds before finally opening it. Her hands trembled as she searched through recent messages. What she found made her stomach drop instantly. Months of conversations with another woman named Sophie. Photos. Hotel reservations. Plans for weekends Emma thought Ryan spent traveling for work. The betrayal itself hurt. But what shattered her most was the realization that her instincts had been right all along. Every moment she doubted herself. Every apology. Every time she convinced herself she was crazy. Ryan had allowed it. Encouraged it. Protected himself with her self-doubt. The next morning Emma confronted him quietly while sunlight filled the kitchen. Ryan stared at the screen for a long moment before shaking his head slowly. "You invaded my privacy." Emma blinked in disbelief. "That's your response?" Ryan rubbed his forehead dramatically like he was exhausted. "Do you realize how unhealthy this behavior is?" Emma felt anger rising inside her for the first time in years. "You cheated on me." Ryan immediately changed direction. "You've been distant for months, Emma. You stopped caring about us." Emma stood there stunned as he calmly explained why his betrayal somehow connected back to her failures. That was the moment something inside her finally shifted. Not because she discovered the affair, but because she suddenly saw the pattern clearly. Every conversation ended with her defending her emotions while Ryan defended his behavior. Every conflict somehow became her responsibility to fix. For years she thought confusion meant she was weak. Now she realized confusion had been the system keeping the relationship alive. 3 weeks later, Emma moved into a tiny apartment on the other side of the city. It was smaller, quieter, and far less beautiful than the life she built with Ryan. But for the first time in years, she felt emotionally safe. At first, the silence terrified her. There was no one telling her what she was feeling. No one correcting her reactions or explaining her emotions back to her. Then slowly the silence became peaceful. Emma started sleeping through the night again. Her constant headaches disappeared. She laughed naturally with friends without analyzing herself afterward.
One evening her younger sister visited and paused halfway through dinner before smiling softly. "You know what's strange?" she said. Emma looked up. "What?" Her sister smiled gently. "You sound like yourself again." Emma nearly cried because she realized she hadn't heard that in years. Later that night she stood alone by her apartment window, watching snow fall across the city lights. For so long people made her feel like she was too emotional, too sensitive, too difficult. But finally she understood the truth. She was never difficult to love. She was difficult to deceive once she started trusting herself again.